Welcome all. Today on our emotional intelligence from a practitioner's perspective, we have Dr. Brendan Gomez here. He's a Fulbright scholar with a first-class degree in genetics. He did his master's in counseling psychology, and he has a PhD in applied developmental psychology. He was the senior faculty with Help University as well as University of Nottingham, and he has appeared on various programs and interviews, both on printed media as well as radio and television. Now, Dr. Brendan, welcome on board.
Thank you so much.
Okay, today basically the topic is emotional intelligence. Before we go into the topic, would you like to share something about yourself?
Thank you, Siva. I'm so glad to be here, and I really think that the work that you are doing is very important. And the kind of series that you're also producing is also equally important. I think a lot of people are going to find value in it. I'm a psychologist, a trainer, and a coach, and I'm passionate in working alongside people and organizations that want to succeed, that want to overcome work and life issues. I'm usually called on by the media and by organizations to work with them in key psychological areas, including how to thrive and succeed during challenges, how to cope with crisis, communication, and conflict management, how to build teamwork and collaboration, how to cope with stress and burnout, and how to increase psychological well-being and happiness in their personal and professional life. As you've already mentioned, I'm a trained counseling psychologist. I have a degree in counseling psychology, applied developmental psychology as well. And I use positive psychology framework in my professional work, meaning it's strength-based. So I focus on assets and factors that will help people thrive and succeed in their life.
Fantastic. I think that the listeners are going to get a lot of benefit, a lot of value from the session today. Now, coming to the topic, let's study basic first. Emotional intelligence. It is a topic that has been going on for years. Now, for you, what is emotional intelligence?
So before we begin, I'm not sure how many of you know this, that COVID-19 has not only exposed our health vulnerabilities, but our economic and organizational vulnerabilities as well. So more than ever before, we realize we need better online technology, but at the same time, we also need better people management solutions that improve our ability to keep our workforce safe, to keep our workforce happy, and to keep our workforce successful. And this is why emotional intelligence is one of the top three most sought after people solutions for organizations today. Let me explain a little bit about what EI is through a little game. If you don't mind, if you don't mind playing a game with me, that'll be great. And by the way, listeners and viewers can also play this game together. Siva, I'd like you to think about a leader that you have worked with, that you have found really hard to work with.
Hard to work with.
Hard to work with. Challenging to work with.
Okay.
You have that in your mind?
Yes.
What was he or she like? Just briefly, in 2 sentences.
Hard because non-decisive.
Okay.
So you can have long discussions, but at the end of the discussion, you won't find a decision. So every initiative that you want to pursue, you won't get the green light to move on or the red light to stop. So you'll be always left wondering. But as a person, the person is very friendly.
How does it make you feel to work with a person like this, especially when this person cannot make decisions?
Frustrated, simply frustrated.
Yeah. Now I want you to picture in your mind a leader that you really were comfortable working with, that you really loved working with? Do you have it in your mind?
Yes.
Okay, great. How was it? How was it like? Describe this leader to me.
Oh, with this guy, within 20 minutes, I get the decision. So whatever I want to carry out, all I have to do is just make sure that I'm prepared with all the possibilities, present with that within 20 minutes, I'll get a yes or no answer. So, you know, a lot of initiatives can be carried out. A lot of satisfaction is there because you can move forward. The results are there. And when things are stopped, you know that, okay, you have to go back and do something, but at least the decision is there. Life
And
is
so you feel
exciting.
very satisfied by that, right?
Yes. A lot of
And
satisfaction.
what do you think is the difference between these two leaders that you talked about?
Firmness in decision making.
What do you think influenced that in them?
The first person dare to make mistakes. Life is his principle, what he has shared with me before. Life is all about 80-20. So 80% of the time, if you're correct, don't worry about the 20% that you may go wrong. Whereas,
You're talking about the leader that you admire, right?
yes, the person that I admire. So making a mistake, it is okay because it is our mistake, we'll handle it together. So that is the kind of attitude that, you know, the person that I admire has. The other person, the one that I find challenging, the person wants to be 100% correct before he moves. So, you know, whatever you do, even as simple as having lunch, it is difficult to be 100% correct. As in, you know, a meal that satisfies you, satisfies me, space, time. So the 100% decision is not that easy, and in most cases you can't. So when the person waits for 100% decision, nothing happens. So the frustration comes because of that. Fear of making decision. Yeah.
And oftentimes this fear of making decisions, if you really look closely, comes from the person's fear about making decisions, that sense of insecurity.
Exactly.
That sense of feeling that I don't believe in myself enough.
Correct.
And that fear of making mistakes. And when they do that, when they feel that, when they have this frame of mind, then they become even more defensive, more protective. And even when you confront them on that, they can become very personal about it.
Exactly.
Whereas a leader who is secure in themselves, who is comfortable with themselves, who is willing to make mistakes, this is a leader who you will find easy to work with because they've got high emotional intelligence. They are the people that you know on that you can count on for good decisions and good solutions because they are aware of themselves. They are aware about how they manage their securities and insecurities. They are also aware about you as a person, as an employee, as a person who works for you, as a team member of their team. So some leaders or managers may ask, is it really worth my time learning and practicing emotional intelligence? You know, so what do we think? You know, there was a paper in the 1990s by Perkran and Fries that talks about how emotions are among the primary determinants of behavior at work. And profoundly influences both the social climate and the productivity of companies and organizations. So when we talk about emotional intelligence as a leader, the key to managing self and others begins with our awareness of ourselves and of others. The simplest way to explain emotional intelligence is in referencing Daniel Goleman's 4-quadrant model of emotional intelligence: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship management. that is key. Our emotional intelligence affects how we see ourselves, how we express ourselves, how we interact with others, how we make decisions, and how we manage our stress. So when we discuss emotional intelligence, we are really discussing cognitive and behavioral psychology. The difference is our focus here is clearly in the realms of positive psychology. How can we influence behavior? How can we manage behavior in ways that enhance our functioning and success in our professional and personal life? And much of what we admire in people, if you look at it, much of what you and I admire in people are the emotional value in it. Their emotional characteristics either make us feel good or their behavior elicits a positive emotional response from us. So either way, all human relationships are characterized by their emotional response. Because we are all feeling beings, whether we like it or not. We are all emotional beings.
Beautifully explained. Beautiful. I'm just sitting here listening and just absorbing all this knowledge. And the way you explain the whole thing, the four quadrants, and how it impacts people's emotion and positive psychology, just brilliant. Now, one of the challenge that we look at in the current scenario, with 60 over days of MCO, we heard that divorce rates went up. We hear of stress levels, death, suicide attempts, so much issues with emotion. So how do we look at emotional intelligence in assisting people during this period? How does it become that important with this new norm?
Excellent. No, I think you've really set the platform in terms of how emotional intelligence can save the day. Because you've talked about some really concrete ways where our current pandemic has really impacted human life. To answer your question, can I play another game?
Definitely. Go for it.
Okay. And those watching, please play along with us. Now, you are given 4 characters from a movie. I'd like you to select one that best fits you. Number 1.
Fits me.
Yes.
Okay.
Fits you. Number 1, Spock from Star Trek. Number 2, Yoda from Star Wars. Number 3, the Hulk from Avengers. And number 4, Peter Parker of Spider-Man. Which would you more closely relate to?
The honest truth, I'm the Hulk.
Yes. The Hulk, okay.
Every now and then, there'll be that burst of energy when I don't get a decision.
Okay, great. Thank you for your honesty. And there's a lot of Hulks out there. So, great, excellent. You'd be surprised if I asked this question some years back. Many would say Spock. In fact, many organizations wanted a few Spocks in them. It's not because Spock was their real self, but it was their idealized self, who they wanted to be as a person, as an organization. You see, Spock was all logic. There was no emotions. And years ago, many idolized being seen as logical and intelligent versus being emotional.
Emotional sounds weak.
Exactly. Yeah. Because having and showing emotions was seen as being vulnerable. Thus, we saw a great emphasis on IQ instruments, instruments that measured IQ, intelligence in the corporate market. We wanted an intelligent workforce. We didn't want a workforce with a heart. We wanted one with a head. We even saw this creep into our entertainment. And, very subtly, Hollywood was producing shows where the main characters, especially the men, were seen as macho.
Yeah.
Never cried. Always had their emotions in check. Similar to the character of Mark Hamill that plays Gibbs on NCIS if you watch TV. Today, times have changed. And across the world, in places I have worked in the United States, in Malaysia, in New Zealand, we now know that emotions do not make us vulnerable, especially when we know how to use them to bring about success. It's what we do with our feelings. It's what we do with our feelings that determines if it makes us strong or weak. And this is what emotional intelligence is all about. It's the work that I do with my clients in helping them discover their strengths and building on this to enhance performance. So, if you have a little bit of time, I'll share with you one client that I worked with.
Sure.
So, I was working with a client who had trouble with his work partner. Now, I've changed the name, so let's call my client Peter and his partner Jane. Now, Jane was flipping and was angrily telling Peter off, even to the point of being unconstructive and bending the truth. Peter confided in me that he really felt like giving Jane a taste of her own bitter medicine and wanted to just scream at her. But he remembered the exercise we had worked on in one of the coaching sessions. And he made the choice to use the skills that he had gained. So you know what he did? He freezed his words, slowed his breath, slowed his breathing, let everything slow free. He pictured himself by his golden retriever that he loved. Calmly and silently spoke to himself and said, I know Jane is angry. And he was just going to let Jane vent and not react to it. So he usually is the Hulk. But today he decided he was not going to react. In fact, what Peter did was he apologized at the end of it after Jane vented, even though he didn't feel it was his fault. And he reinforced how valuable their friendship and partnership was to him. Surprisingly, Jane calmed down and soon apologized for her outburst too. And this helped save their professional partnership and business collaboration that almost certainly would have ended badly. So, my question is, to everyone out there, is having emotions the lack of intelligence? On the contrary today, thanks to people like Daniel Goleman, we know that our intelligence has multiple aspects to it, including emotional intelligence that impacts our decisions and our relationships and our actions. So I hope that answered your question in terms of...
It does. It also created so many new questions and new wondering. Like, for instance, in my case, crying is not an option. It would be like, watching a movie and you feel like a tear coming, right? what you do is you take a break. Suddenly you need to go to the loo. You know, you just want to hide that emotion because you are the eldest son of the house. The upbringing is such that you're not supposed to show your emotions. I had my session a few years ago where I started embracing emotion. I was in a state where hugging even my mom is a no-no because that is a sign of weakness. So vulnerability that you mentioned, that is exactly the point. You have to be the eldest son, you have to be macho, you have to be the pillar of strength to the family. Sometimes it's the upbringing. That is one portion of it. The other portion, being the Hulk, when the burst of energy is there, if it is not reciprocated, it is not fun. So when Jane was bursting and Peter refused to entertain that, it's not fun anymore. It forces you to rethink what's happening. And that is when you tend to mellow. Because most of the time, the anger is not against the person in front of us. The anger is something that is bottled in, from other experiences. So slowly learning to appreciate that, I'm gaining some intelligence in emotion. Still at fundamental level. So the Hulk is always trying to come out, but it is always that appreciation that nobody is strong enough to control my emotions. So I'm not giving them the joy of being able to transform me to Hulk. Quite interesting, but yeah, it creates some pressure as well, but slowly you start enjoying it. Right? So,
and I think your sharing is so valuable for people to hear that. And thank you for being so open about it. Not enough people are open about this. And, your openness, I think, is going to help a lot of people.
Because I think a lot of people have this, they just don't want to. I suppose people want to know that others are experiencing the same thing because, very few actually talk about it. Right?
Yeah. And I think you talk about the different needs during COVID-19 and how people are responding differently, and a lot of them are in distress. Oftentimes, a lot of these people are not aware that many others are also struggling. Exactly. And I wish we could really connect all these people together. The ones that are feeling depressed, the ones that are feeling suicidal, the ones that are feeling like giving up, the ones that are feeling, oh, what am I going to do with this business right now? How can I make anything out of this that has already torn into tatters? I wish we could connect them all together and realize that seriously, if we can support each other, if we can share our stories together, and realize that we are in the same boat, we might just be able to work together to paddle this boat along a course that is going to take us into a much more successful journey than where we are right now.
Yeah, exactly. I have this experience to share. It's your session, but it's a nice experience that I had. 2018, we climbed Mount Kinabalu. It was a group of strong hike. We have been hiking many mountains, so Kinabalu is like nothing. But what happened was when we reached the last part of going to the peak, which was at kilometers 8.5, you can see the peak. It is already there. It is just a matter of a few more steps. Many actually gave up. And I had some very macho guys, people who used to run up mountains, having palpitation and, starting to have fear of death, and people starting to cry, people starting to black out, on the verge of giving up, vomiting, acute mountain sickness, everything hit in. But interestingly, everyone just decided to support each other. I met people who were giving hugs to each other, holding their hands. Come, let's just take one more step, then we'll stop together. I'm not going to the peak if you are not. It's just taking one step. And the surprising thing was, the entire group, I think there were about 61 of us, I can't remember the exact number. The entire group of us actually reached the peak together. And the joy of celebrating at the peak with all those who vomited. I had my gastric attack, the ones who blacked out, the ones who were crying. For us, this is family. The support team is there. You are not struggling alone. It is us together. And like you said, we'll sail the ship through. What is important is each of us giving that support to the other.
That's right.
That message, if everyone can embrace that and just assist people with one step, you don't have to take them through the whole journey. Just one step. If everyone assists with one step, and the other person is willing to just hold the hand of another, I think this pandemic is nothing. It is just going to be our Kinabalu High, which we did 2 years ago, and still talking about it because of that moment, the moment where we were holding hands of each other, we were supporting each other, we were crying together, we won together, and we came down and celebrated together. So this pandemic, same thing will happen if we do the same thing. 2 years from now, we are going to share the same stories.
And that really fits in so well with the positive psychology model of emotional intelligence. And, what you have described in terms of the togetherness encompasses the 4 quadrants of what Daniel Goleman talks about in terms of emotional intelligence. Being self-aware of our limitations, being managing the emotions, even though we're crying, even though we are distressed, even though we feel like giving up, understanding that, but at the same time sharing that with others and realizing that others too are going through a difficult time. Others too are feeling like giving up and not wanting to climb that mountain as well. And realizing that social awareness, that other awareness, and managing that with them collectively together is a great example of what we can do in terms of climbing this mountain, in terms of COVID-19. It's another mountain. It's another mountain to climb. And it's, as you said, Siva, this is not impossible. We can do it, but doing it together. And doing it together requires, it's not going to come naturally. It's going to require certain skills, certain facilitation in terms of ensuring that everyone comes together in an organization, in a family, in a business, coming together and working together. And when you talk about human beings coming together and working together, there is going to be emotions in it. And how do you manage that? Goleman found that 67% of all competencies deemed essential for high performance in the workplace were related to emotional intelligence.
Beautiful.
In fact, studies show that 90% of top performers in organizations have high emotional intelligence. You see? And that's what gets us to the top of the mountain. So if you want to have a winning organization with top performers across your people, investing and mastering in emotional intelligence is proven to be the way to go. It's proven to be the way to bring you up that mountain. Through emotional intelligence, we're able to perceive, we're able to understand emotions in us and in the people around us, and better able to use and manage our emotions wisely. And much of this relates to what? The quality of happiness we experience in our lives. When we get to the top of the mountain, we are exuberant. We are saying, we made it. We did it.
And we talk about it for years.
That's right. A success that you can taste in your mouth for years.
Yeah.
And this is why I'm excited. I'm excited as I delve deeper into using positive psychology in my work with my clients.
Do you have anything else that you want to share with us?
I just want to end with an encouragement to everyone, especially those who share my excitement in delving into this area of positive psychology and emotional intelligence, to get a copy of 3 books. 3 books, 2 which has especially helped me and my work. And the first is What's Great About This? How to Be Resilient and Thrive Through Disruption and Change. It's by Dominic Seah. It places emotional intelligence smack in the middle of our work culture. I'd really like to encourage you all to get that book. The second is your book, Siva, titled Reclaim Your Right to Success. Now, it's a book that empowers one towards success, and I must say it really touched me. So I really encourage our viewers to also get a copy of your book, Reclaim Your Right to Success.
Thank you.
The third is Emotional Intelligence 4.0, the mother of all revolutions. Now, that's my book chapter, co-authored with Dr. Patricia Ang. It's in Advancing Innovations and Sustainable Outcomes, and it will be out next month, published by IGI Global, Pennsylvania in the United States. So I'd like to encourage you, I'd like to encourage viewers to get these three. They are an amazing step to empowering you and your organizations in your journey towards understanding, learning, and using emotional intelligence in the workplace and in your homes.
Beautiful. I've read the first book, and it is always on my table. Very powerful book. I've not read the second book, but I wrote it. So that came from the heart. It was a sharing from the heart. So the book is in the heart. I'm looking forward to the third book. That would be a joy. Just listening to you, I can just gauge the amount of value that I'll be getting just going through, even a single page of that book. I'm just excited for it. When will it be
I look forward.
out?
Next month, in a month's time.
Fantastic. We'll be looking forward to that. Dr. Brandon, thank you so much.